Oh, the great summoner is here? Shall I offer up my blood? I'm dying of boredom. Say, is there a hero you don't like? Why don't we murder them?
Today we're talking about Griss, the last of the Four Hounds from Mage. Griss is the crazy, unhinged member of the group. One of my favorite parts of my first playthrough was beating up Griss with Fram. Since martial arts can break Tome users, the mental image of the starting healer girl going up to the crazy bad guy, snapping his book out of his hands, calling him a nerd, and then kicking him in the face was just so hilarious to me. With that being said, in Fae, Griss is not going to be that easy to walk up to. He quite literally has brought along an Emblem Ring with him, and boy is it a fun one. As a unit, Griss is going to be a green infantry mage. It would have been perfect if he was colorless, because then the Four Hounds would have had all 4 colors while having one of each movement type. Sadly, the devs don't want us to have that much fun. Now, for stats, Griss has 40 HP, 47 attack, 27 speed, 26 defense, and 48 res. He has a very nice res super boon. Griss has the typical mage spread of high attack and res and not great physical bulk. He doesn't have a lot of speed, but it is something that could be important for certain matchups. The main reason Griss sacrifices speed though is because he has brought along the Nova Tome for Fae. This is essentially a 9-might Brave Tome. It does not work on enemy phase, but that's okay. Griss gets a lot of other effects baked in. At the start of each turn, inflict -7 attack and res, and sabotage onto the closest foes and any foe within 2 spaces of that. For every foe within 5 spaces of Griss, he can move to any of the nearest tiles that are 2 spaces away from that enemy. After attacking, he has Kanto Ally 5. For actual combat, this weapon gets +3 flat attack. If initiating, Griss attacks twice. If either Griss or the enemy have any kind of bonus or penalty active, Griss gets bonus attack and res equal to 6 plus 20% of his flat res from start of combat. With the introduction of Nova, surely that must mean Dire Thunder's due for a refine because Jesus Christ. If Griss can hit 50 flat res, he's gonna get plus 16 attack and res. You only need Griss or the foe to have any kind of field buff, debuff, or status that's almost impossible not to have in today's game. On top of this, Griss inflicts -7 attack and res, and Sabotage can turn that into -14 total. This is a ton of extra damage and a fair amount of magical bulk. The real kicker is that Nova has Emblem Celica Ring built in. Griss basically has a 5-space attack range. If there's an enemy in range, he can warp to the nearest spot where he can make an attack. You can kind of think of it like Griss is now a 3-move ranged unit. To get even crazier, Griss is the first unit to have Kanto Ally 5. Kanto Ally is a warp Kanto. I believe the Thief banner first introduced it, and well, it hasn't really shown up all that much after that. I think Kanto Ally 2 was the max from before. After attacking, Griss is able to warp to any space next to an ally within 5 spaces. He doesn't have the freedom to move wherever, but a 5-space warp is gigantic. If you do not have Kanto control, Griss is going to warp in and then warp out. This is exactly what happens during one of his chapters in Engage, except that map also had Fog of War. Ironically, I don't think he had Nova for that map. Now it is very cool to see Griss getting this tie-in, but boy, the Nova 10 makes Dire Thunder look like chump change. To be fair to Mr. Reinhardt, he actually does move 3 spaces. You can stop Griss's movement with good old Warp Bubble. For the rest of his base kit, Griss has Mirror Strike 2, plus 4 attack and res when initiating. It works, but there are other budget A skills that give more attack and res. For his special, Griss has Glacies, and to help charge it, he has brought along attack and res tempo 3. No guard, and no extra special charge. I believe this is the first tempo skill to be on a non-fire star unit. Funnily, tempo is one of those powerful skills that might not actually do anything in a battle. If the enemy doesn't have guard, then no guard doesn't matter. If they don't have blade or breath type cooldown, then the defensive tempo part doesn't matter. Tempo is an excellent insurance ability, but we now have tempo sacred seals. If you just want those effects, you can run a tempo seal while using another B skill. Still, the tier 4 tempo gives 50% DR piercing. That's a little more enticing, so Griss having the tier 3 is neat. If you plan to merge up Griss, the neutral nature gives him +1 HP, attack, and defense. For any brave attacker, more attack is good, but if you do pick the res super boom, Griss can get a full +4 extra res. This may be a worthwhile trait for an investment since one of Griss's best skills will use res checking. For free-to-play green mage comparisons, this is one of those cases where Griss's personal weapon is so unique that he's one of a kind no matter the stat differences. You simply cannot get anything close to a Brave Tome with Emblem Celica built in. Just to have a look, C-Time2 was the most recent heroic Grail Green Infantry Mage. She's a pretty offensive option if you wanted a speedy unit. For a bulkier mage, Stella has decent defense and res. They have a more balanced defensive spread compared to Griss. For demotes, there are actually 2 higher res mages. Orochi is not as min-maxed, but she should get a refine this year, something to keep an eye on if you're interested. As for Bastion, he actually almost matches Griss's attack and resistance. Pretty impressive. Griss will be leading the free-to-play class in those stats. Him having Nova will just further separate him from any other non-5-star option though. For builds, Nova is pretty easy to build on for a budget. Mirror Strike is the right idea since the Brave hits are for player phase only. However, Griss could just run Attack and Res Ideal for +5, or you could do Solo for +6. There's also Finish, which can tack on 5 true damage. Unfortunately, due to the warping, Griss might not be close enough to trigger Finish. Double Finish skills would be fun, but be careful of positioning. To boost Griss's own stats, you can run Attack and Res Oath. He should warp next to an ally after attacking, so Oath 3 shouldn't be too tough to manage. With the field buff, Griss can definitely hit 60 resistance once we merge him up. You may need that red super boon though. For specials, Griss should charge Glazes in 2 hits if you run Heavy Blade. That's cool, but you can't trigger it in 1 round unless you get Griss to quad attack. Since we have Tempo for no guard, you can use the new Times Pulse Sacred Seal, bring a 2 cooldown Moonbow or Glimmer to 1 cooldown. Griss's first hit will charge special, the second Brave hit will trigger it. He warps in, double taps, then warps out. That's the general playstyle. For other skills, Griss could run Pass. There's an option for Guard, but if Griss can't finish off the target, then he's probably dead regardless if it's a physical damage foe. Griss will be able to survive against other magic users, but he's not really getting any percent damage reduction or flat damage reduction, and he's not exactly fast. Any survivability is just mainly going to come from pure res stacking. For premium builds, Griss has a couple standout skills. Mainly, he can utilize Rune's Kit quite well. In the modern age, we have player phase free follow-up skills. Brash 4 can give Griss some percent DR with a follow-up. From the A slot, there's Slime Mirror. Lots of attack and res, a free follow-up, and if Griss has 2 positive statuses or the foe has 2 negative statuses, then you get 5 extra true damage. Nova only inflicts Sabotage, but that's why you pair this with Pulse of Ploy. Any tier for Ploy can work, but since Nova already debuffs attack and resistance, you can just go for the free cooldown with Pulse Up. This skill inflicts Deploy status and Exposure. Exposure is 10 true damage, and that becomes 20 with Brave hits. You add that to the 5 true damage from Slime Mirror and a potential quad attack, and Griss gets pretty scary. He will also be constantly getting cooldown every turn. This can help him proc 3 or 4 cooldown specials if he can stall a couple turns. If we want to upgrade to tier 4 tempo, he then gets 50% DR piercing on all hits. This will probably be the main build Griss will run. We get quad potential, stack true damage, gain free cooldown, and we use Griss's high base res to inflict Ploy's statuses. For an alternate B skill, Resonance is a little more thematic for the guy that likes to hurt himself. We can swap Tempo to the Sacred Seal slot or the Echo version. Resonance can also give partial DR piercing with 8 to 12 true damage. The only issue with Resonance is that Griss's HP is a little more important. If you were to go with an attacker res boon, then with plus 10 merges and 1 Dragonflower, Griss just hits 45 HP. That's going to give 50% DR piercing with 10 true damage. If you want the full 60% and 12 true damage, you're going to need another 5 HP in some way. It's a fitting skill for the Emblem Celica guy, but there are other B skill options. With Slime Mirror's free follow-up, you could run Desperation for instant quads. This is risky, but it technically does work. To get true damage based on the foe's res, along with 7 instant damage, you can also use Occultist's Strike. If you want more attack and res debuffs, then Attack and Res Discord's a fun skill. You might get extra debuff coverage, but the skill requires Discord to be active on the foe. If the foe and 2 nearby foes have Discord active, you can get minus 10 attack and res in combat, and this skill has true damage equal to 15% of Griss's res. If you don't need DR piercing or you can run Tempo Echo, this is a fairly decent damage option. For other skills, Griss can run Crystalline Water for flat resistance. The blocking of enemy panic and debuffs is also good. In the A slot, you could do remote or impact skills for some kind of defensive power. Brash 4 is another percent DR option, but again, any physical counterattack is not looking to end well. Might be better to just focus all in on damage. For C skills, Insight would work well with the warp part of Nova. Attack and Res Oath 4 also works. Pledge could be fun for the stat boost with cooldown. There is no attack and res pledge yet though. Now if you want to stack statuses, Creation Pulse is another cooldown skill. We of course have Times Pulse in the C slot, Sacred Seal slot, and as an attune skill now. Griss could use Special Spiral, and there's always Emblem Art for access to Slaying. Do note, you were going to lose 8 damage on specials since Griss has Brave attacks. There are a million cooldown options for the infantry units. So, should you 5-star Griss? I think for general content, the answer is a pretty resounding yes. A Brave Tome with lots of bonus attack and res, debuffing, warping, and Conto is kinda just insane. This free reward unit literally has Emblem Celica's Ring, and he can contribute a good amount of team support using his high res stat for skills like Ploy or Discord. Griss is an incredible free-to-play unit. The last time we got a non-5-star mage with a Brave Tome, it literally changed the game for years to come. Reinhardt was so strong, the devs literally never gave him a refine. However, That was 7 years ago. We've had many mages with brave attacks since, and currently it's almost a must-have to get past stuff like Twin Save or Shield Fighter. Warp Bubble is also a lot easier to find, which will prevent Griss from just flying on in. Despite his incredible weapon, you still need a lot of other support if you want Griss to take out current armor tanks. Survivability is another issue because distant counter is always a threat. If you want to run Emblem Len with Miracle from, say, Ymir, well, that's great, but it kind of defeats the purpose of our warping weapon. Essentially, Griss is a top tier free reward unit. You can't just go find another free to play Brave Tome user besides Reinhardt, and Nova's extremely juiced up compared to Dire Thunder. That said, unpierceable percent DR with flat DR is an issue everyone is currently facing. A quad attack can help, but you still need tons of extra damage, whether it's attack buffs, res debuffs, or straight true damage. Griss has an excellent starting point and should do well, assuming you give him premium skills. Just don't expect him to be nuking everyone out there without proper support. That's all I have to say about Griss. With the Four Hounds finished, I'm curious what other Grand Hero battle units from Engage will appear now. I assume the Engage New Heroes banners are going to start to slow down this year. We just got Celestia after Zephyr was the first Hound to appear. I do wonder how long it's going to be before good old Gregory will get into Fae. Have fun with Griss though, and go beat his Grand Hero battle map. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.